In this NACBA webinar, you're going to hear from legendary bankruptcy attorney John Orcutt on how he's currently generating leads, how he's following up, what he's doing to ripening his clients so that they feel good about filing bankruptcy. Thanks for joining us. So welcome to the NACBA webinar, October 10th, 2023. This is part two of so far a two-part series. The first time John and I did this was in NACBA, Washington, D.C., last May, where we unpacked marketing ideas. And we're limited to the people who went to Washington, D.C. and went to NACBA or saw it on the video, the recording on NACBA's website. If you did see that, great. And if you didn't, we're going to include the link to that part one, and we're going to include part two, this recording, in when we send an email out to you in the future. The purpose of this is basically educational, right? And let me explain who John is for those that don't know. John's been in the business for decades and decades and decades, helped over 70,000 people with their debt, really dominates North Carolina consumer bankruptcy. And an easy way to notice that is just simply type in bankruptcy attorney Raleigh, North Carolina, or put in whatever city you want in North Carolina. And you can see from the number of Google reviews what type of domination he has. Right now in the practice, he focuses on marketing, office systems, and document assembly, automation, how to get stuff done with the least amount of personal staff time. And he does this to give back. I mean, John and I have met many, many years ago at NACBA, and over the years, our relationship grew. We get on the Zooms all the time, just talking about marketing, what's working, what's not working. He's testing a variety of things in his office, and I tell him what we're testing in real time, and we share ideas, and that's what this is. And also, as a side, with his son Shawn, he's creating, or he has created, a coaching program for those that want to build their practice to do 100 filings per month or more. And you can find more about that at bankruptcy.T.I.G.E.R.S.com. We're going to include all this in the follow-up email. All right, that a good summary, John?
Good summary.
Good deal. Okay, my name is Philip Tirone. I'm with 720 System Strategies. And in 2012, bankruptcy attorney Ken Neely out of Gilbert, Arizona called me and said, bankruptcy filings are down. I got to figure out a way to make more money. And he used one of our products. We have 7 products that we help consumer bankruptcy attorneys with their marketing. And one of them is how to improve your credit score. And he included that in his bankruptcy, and raised his fees $300. And his same-day retain rate went up 19%. And that's when I realized, whoa, I need to really focus on this consumer bankruptcy marketing niche. And this is all we do. We don't do family law. We don't do personal injury. We're consumer bankruptcy, and we have products that are starting at $100 a month. So I share with you on that, because it's not like we don't have clients just like John. We have clients all over the spectrum. And John, I'm happy to have you as one of our clients. Thank you for that. So as I mentioned, this is presentation 2 of our NACBA presentations. The first one was in Washington, D.C. at NACBA in May. We'll include that recording as we go. We've categorized this into 3 categories. In a consumer bankruptcy practice, you have 3 parts of your business. 1, getting new leads in the door. 2, a third getting new leads in the door. A third, keeping new leads in the door. Once you gather the lead, how to keep them and convert them, because not all of them retain or file right away. And the last third, getting the legal work done. So we're not going to talk about the legal work. We're going to talk about the first 2/3, getting new leads in the door, keeping new leads in the door. And John, let's start with getting the new leads in the door. Years ago, you spent $80,000 a month in TV advertising.
Right.
In our conversation, we've now spent $2,000. Okay,
right.
Now you spend about $2,000 a month. It's a huge win for the little guy, the small bankruptcy firm that really can't compete with what you were doing in bankruptcy. What changed?
The market changed. We went when I originally started law, we might have been up to 5 TV channels. Uh, Before that, it had only been 3. When it's only 5 TV channels, if you're on 2 or 3 or 5 of those, you have pretty much the entire market. There was no social media. There was no Google, right? There wasn't all the distractions we have today. So what has happened is there are now hundreds, if not thousands of TV channels and all these other distractions like Netflix, Prime Video, Facebook, Instagram, you name it. And all those things have driven the ROI of doing stuff on TV down because there's just not that many people watching at any particular time, any particular channel. So I went from, like you say, about 80,000 a month at one point down to I'm just doing 2,000 now. I may not even continue that. TV is in effect dead for us in terms of getting a good ROI.
So
and the same thing happened with Yellow Pages.
Yeah.
Yellow Pages was replaced by the internet, and that was something that probably a lot of us bigger players were spending 15, 20,000 a month on that.
Yeah, lots changed. So let's pivot to the type of advertising you're doing, right? And you broke it up into 2 categories. Let's break it. Let's start with one, then we'll go to the second one, then we'll go to the third.
Right.
From referrals.
All right. The first category, which is the one that works the best, is the one where you are in the way of them actually, the potential clients actually searching for solutions to their debt problems. And so you have the Google PPC, you have the Google LSA, which LSA is those little ads at the top of the Google search now. That stands for local service ads. Okay. Both of those work pretty well for us, and there's probably some other type of things where people are searching, like they may search on the internet and end up in the hands of some third-party lead sources. Okay, so that's the one kind of advertising where they're actually looking for somebody. Okay,
right. Now the key thing.
Other one,
John, before we go to the second category. That first category, for those that don't understand or new to marketing, that the price of those leads or LSA call can range from $150 to $150 per call. The value of that is that they're searching for bankruptcy. They're coming and saying, bankruptcy attorney near me, call, and the call's coming in. The disadvantage of that for us is that you have to convert because these calls are coming in. You really need to be profitable, have a cost per filing around maximum $450 per filing. And because of that, you need to have your back end dialed in along with keeping the leads, which we'll talk about soon.
Right. I want to talking about the second, third.
Yeah.
I mean, you can let's say you get all the leads in the world in, you still have to make sure that you handle them properly.
Yeah.
So in any event, the second type of advertising is where people aren't searching for anything but they do have a problem. They maybe recognize they have a problem. They don't know where to go. They haven't really actively searched for an answer yet. And that's where we use Facebook ads, Instagram ads, those types of things. All right. And with those, like on Facebook, is probably more female-oriented than male-oriented. We have to put out stuff that is going to stop them in their tracks. So it's got to be attractive. It's got to be a very quick message. It's got to be something that hits home immediately. And we probably have worked up 100 of those type of ads that we're testing from time to time. Some work, some don't. But that's the other type where we get in their way, and it's not as effective. It's certainly a slice of our work coming in, not as effective as PPC and LSA.
The advantage of the second category is you're getting the lead at a fifth of cost.
Right.
And then
you're getting there ahead of every other attorney. In other words, if you can get their attention, they haven't been looking out for an attorney. You're the first one. If you can capture it in a credible way, then you may have them and they never get around to doing a Google search to compare you or to go to somebody else instead of you.
We're going to talk about that in the second category, specifically of keeping the leads.
Right. And the thing that is a difference between the two types. When somebody's searching, they are more of what we call ripe. Ripe like an apple on the tree, ripe for doing something. Okay. Whereas the other ones on Facebook are mostly less ripe. Now we're going to talk a lot more about ripeness later on, because ripeness is a concept that every debtor attorney really has to understand, or you won't understand things like, why is your no-show rate so high, and why can't I get it down?
Right. Excellent. Category 1, people looking for bankruptcy. Category 2, people who were jumping in front of, were sort of jumping out of the bushes saying, hey, did you know this about bankruptcy?
Well, and they may be looking for bankruptcy. They may be just looking for a debt solution, right, because bankruptcy has never crossed their mind. Okay.
Right.
They may trip into bankruptcy, or somebody may come up to them and said, have you ever considered a bankruptcy? And of course, it's the last thing that people want to do, because it comes with an automatic animus, right? It's anathema. So part of the whole ripening process we're going to talk about later is to try to bring them along. So there's ripening that happens automatically, and we're kind of getting into that, but I'll get into more of that later.
We'll do it, Albert. Okay, let's talk about the thrilled clients. Another segment that, as you said, it's a critical piece of
it's like, where do you get clients? You get clients through advertising, but some of your clients are ones that come because you've represented them in the past, and they're referring other people into you. Now, I think it goes without saying that if you didn't thrill that client, they're not going to be sending anybody into, which also gets around to the concept of the whole process of dealing with them in all stages of the case. You've got to try and thrill them as best you can. You can't thrill all of them. A client who's never going to get thrilled is somebody who they can't afford their Chapter 13 payments and bottom out. And they're not happy with me because somehow it's my fault.
Yeah.
But thrilled clients are the only ones that give you referrals.
So you called it, you said Google reviews are the modern day digital equivalent of word of mouth. And 59% of your clients in the intake that they fill out say that they were influenced by your Google reviews. Right. I mean, you called it.
That's something I came up with. I'm not probably unique in that. But if you think about it, we are in our cultures, in our background, it's almost bred into our DNA that if we have a problem with somebody, you go and ask other people for help or to see who can help you. That's word of mouth. So we've done that all our lives, and we still do it. Like, if I need to have my lawn mowed, I may go to the guy next door and say, your lawn's mowed, who's it done? With respect to bankruptcy, you're probably not going to do that. Okay. So, where do we go? We go to the Google reviews. We go to all the reviews. I mean, whenever we buy something on Amazon, we're always looking at the reviews, and we look at the bad ones as well as the good ones, because the bad ones give us they may give us some contextual information that the real good review doesn't give you.
Right. John,
Google reviews are critical.
And you mentioned
anybody
also
on the call who isn't working, asking clients to give them reviews is missing a big, huge opportunity to stand out. Think about this. Think about this.
Yeah.
If you have no reviews, when you look at somebody else who has a lot of reviews or other people that have some reviews, the tendency would be to think nobody has anything good to say about this person.
Right.
Do you want that to be your situation? You certainly don't, and you certainly don't want it because you not gotten around to ask people for reviews.
Well, and most people on the call, they have reviews. Most people who call our office and say, "Hey, I want to generate more Google reviews," they're just one of the many in the pack. They're 18, they're 24, they're 38, right?
Sure.
And they have this belief pattern of two things. One, debtors don't like to share their personal information, which is categorically false. That's not true. They love to claim.
You know what else is false? I've been shocked because every person that gives a review gives their name.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Now, I mean, I was just shocked that happened. And we have like close on to 3,000 reviews now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we get our reviews in-house because you weren't, your product wasn't around when I started doing that. And we figured out how to get reviews.
Yeah. Right.
Okay.
Right.
And we focus, and I have a whole paper on this that I can send to anybody that emails me. I can send you a whole paper on how to present it to our staff, a white paper on how to get reviews and what to do and things like that.
We'll include that in the mail out as well. Great.
Right. Okay. But we never ask a client to give us a review who we don't perceive as thrilled with us.
Yeah.
I mean, otherwise you're just asking for, maybe a lesser review, or if somebody's just mad at us, you're not going to ask them for a review.
Yeah.
And that leads into one of the products you have where you help attorneys get reviews, but you are able to do something I can't do. You can filter out the ones that aren't good reviews so that only the good ones come on. I have to deal with the negative reviews, right. And that's something that we need to go over. You ready for that?
Before we do that, let me just say one thing. I mean, even with our software, that it slows down the process, anyone can always go to Google and post a negative review, which we'll get to. But the one thing I want to point out, it's not hard to generate reviews, and something that just happened, less than 2 weeks ago. We had a new client. Actually, the client signed up from NACBA, and he said, "Hey, here's my past client list." And the key to reviews is give something of value first before asking something. So what John's talking about is they're thrilled with their case, but let's just pretend their case is done. You got your past client list. So what we do is we send it out we send on behalf of the attorney an email saying, "Hey, I now have this program called 7 Steps to a 720 credit score, and I'm going to give it to you as part of your bankruptcy process. Would you like that?" They reply, we give it to them for free, costs the attorney nothing and the debtor nothing. And then once we give it to them, we say, "Would you give us a review?" We generated this one small filer, we're talking like 10 a month, and we generated them 45, 50 reviews over a weekend. I mean, this is easy stuff. There's a process for all this, but let's move on. Now that we know how critical they are, we all know this, but it's easy to get. Tell it when you get a negative review, how do you do it, and how do you respond to it to make people want to call you from the negative review?
Okay, so nobody wants to get a negative review. We're no different than anybody else. But when we get one, we jump right on it. And we respond to it. First off, obviously we check behind, find out if it's really a client. Had a couple of them that we couldn't even figure out that they even existed. But if they're a client, they're having a problem, we try to address it behind the scenes to see what's happening. One way or another, we're going to respond to that review. And you have to respond to a bad review, but it's your chance to talk to all of the public. All right. When I respond to a bad review, what I do is I'm very positive. I talk about the mission of the firm. If the person's disappointed with me, I say, "I'm sorry that we disappointed you." I am. It's not my goal to disappoint or to be a failure in the eyes of any particular person. But I write it as if I'm talking to that person, but I am doing it fully knowledgeable. It's as if there's a whole room full of people that are watching me respond to that, because those are the people, you care about that client and want to do the best you can, but those other people are going to judge you more by the response to your bad review than all your good reviews. And the fact that you have a bad review every now and then, it's almost necessary for everything to be realistic. If all you have is 5-star reviews, no one's going to believe there isn't something afoot. It's not going to be suspicious. But if you have the occasional bad review and you respond to it properly, it adds credibility to all the other reviews.
Yeah.
Now, the one thing everybody needs to remember, you won't think about this when you're all hot and you're sitting there and you've got the facts to refute that review. You cannot put anything in that would be interpreted as things covered by the attorney-client privilege.
Yeah.
And if you feel like there's some fact, all the best probably you can say in that regard is something like, I could respond in a different way, but I cannot reveal things. The attorney-client privilege prevents me from doing so. But then again, you're still on the defensive. We try to just be more positive. And we try to, if we haven't heard from them and talked to them, we're asking them, please call us, help us. Let's see if we can fix this thing. 5 or 6 times, I have actually put in a response, my personal phone number.
Yeah.
That's got to give me credibility with the rest of the public. Do you know how many times anybody's actually called that number? 0.
How many? There we go.
No, 0.
Yeah.
I was flabbergasted.
Yeah, you would think more, right? Yeah.
So you look at the negative review as your chance to say something directly to the public who is listening in.
Yeah. Thank you, John. So to summarize, or to the end, the final point of the third of getting leads in the door is something that John and I talk about every time we talk about how words matter. Like, you know, we hold on to testing. I mean, we send an email with this headline and we send the same email with a different headline. What subject line? I mean, what works? Speak about that, John, because, you know,
look, I've spent the last 40 years writing TV ads mostly, right? I did like 60 TV ads. All right. And with a TV ad, you only have 30 seconds. So that's 30 seconds. You better make that a good 30 seconds. And the last thing anybody wants to hear from is a boring attorney.
Yeah.
Okay. So your message is as important as anywhere that you place it, whether you're placing it in a penny saver ad or in a Facebook ad or anywhere. And even in your PPC ads, words really, really matter. You need to focus on words that strike a chord, that ring true. Okay. Last thing you do is talk about yourself. You don't talk about yourself. In fact, the best ads are the ones where you're not talking about what you can do for them in bankruptcy.
Yeah.
The best ads are, I used to do a lot of ads that said I could stop foreclosure and do this, stop this and do that, get rid of debt and stuff. And yeah, we touch on that stuff, but that isn't what people care about. People care about that whatever the results you're going to have is going to make them feel better. It's more about the feeling than the facts. Now, for all the people watching, I've got a website called billsbills.com that has dozens, if not hundreds, of ideas on it for the right words to say. And the whole public is ready to, if you're thinking of writing ads, whether you're starting out a practice and want to do a penny saver ad, get on there and look up. It's a treasure trove.
Treasure trove of information.
That's where I kind of cataloged a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Now, 2 things on ads. One, when you watch part 1, we actually show the #1 producing ad on Facebook. We generate about 5,000 ads or 5,000 leads a month on Facebook. The #1 ad is this gentleman, and we actually had our clients take a selfie, and they're speaking to the phone. And the guy's talking about how I filed bankruptcy in this date, and then I ended up getting a camper, and I paid it off, and I bought a Harley Davidson. Like, it's not perfect. He's not an actor. He's not even looking at the camera.
If you want to, like this, if you, the other attorneys on this call, want to find out what the public really cares about, read Google reviews whether it's yours or somebody else's, and notice how little they ever talk about specifically what you did for them. It's all about how you treated them. Because the truth is, here's the big epiphany that hit me years ago. People care, and we're all the same. People care more about how you treat them than what you do for them. Bankruptcy attorneys think we're focused on what I can do for you. And when you do that, you miss the point.
Yeah.
They don't come to you to get rid of debt. They come to you to get rid of stress, sleepless nights, and the worry that has engulfed their worlds.
Absolutely. One final note on this, we follow up with hundreds of thousands of bankruptcy leads that have not chosen to file bankruptcy yet, to ripen them, which you'll learn about shortly. And we talk nothing legal. It's nothing about legal. It's nothing about the lawyer. It's nothing about none of it. And the reason why we took it out, because it doesn't work, right? We know it works because we've sent so many millions of emails that show us the results. People choose with their clicks. John, let's keep it moving. We're moving out of getting leads in the door to keeping leads in the door. This is a key point. And what your next point is, sort of like, it was one of my epiphanies in the training for this, right? About this first call, this first person, this staff member. Before we go there.
Well, yeah, we can do that. Yeah, that's fine. We can talk about the first call or the free consult.
Yeah, that's what I mean. The free consult. Yeah. Okay. No, the free consult. But what that
let's hit on the free consult. There's something that people miss. Presumably, every attorney on this call, watching this, gives a free consult. And if you don't, you're probably on your way out of business, or you're like the exceptional person that I've never met, that you have so many people coming to you that you can charge them. Well, I've never been in that position. It's probably because I keep getting bigger the more people we get in the door. But one thing that we started to notice and we hit on real big is people think that the free consult only talks about the first time they talk to you, and that if they talk to you again or follow up, even though they're not signing up with you, that you're going to charge them. So I make it real clear in emails that follow up and have my interviewers make it real clear that the free consult is never done until you get all the answers and information you need, no matter how long it takes.
Yeah, that's key. That was
because they all think they're going to get charged the very next time that they talk to you, unless you make it clear that that is not the case. When they retain you, when they're going to go ahead with the case, that's the time we'll talk about money. Right now, you can ask me all the questions in the world about debts and everything. I will answer everything for free.
And if you have another question, call me back. If you have another question, email us. Because the thing is, the truth matter is, these debtors haven't talked to many attorneys in their life. You may be the first attorney they're talking to. So there's this they're intimidated.
And there's no way in any first interview, no matter how much time you spend, that you are going to answer every question that comes up to them, or the things that they're going to hear when they get back home and somebody puts down bankruptcy or asks about something that they're not familiar with. So let's move on to that first call they make to your office.
Okay. Right.
We didn't used to focus on that as much as we should. And then I had the epiphany at one point. I thought, oh my God, this person, the rest of the life before they called me, and perhaps a lot of the days and months after they call me, they have no interest in bankruptcy whatsoever. The time they care most about, that the peak of their interest in terms of getting answers to their debt problems, is the moment they call you. So we should make the best use of that moment together, because there's a 100% chance they're on the phone with you when they call you. But if you take their number and call them back, there's a good chance your no-show rate's going to show up. Even if you make an appointment now, but don't spend some time with them, you're going to have a pretty high no-show rate if you set it out 2 days, 3 days, a month, a week, because their interest ebb and flows on a day-by-day basis, depending upon what problem is hitting them the most. So what we do is we make sure that the person that answers the phone for those first-time calls, whether they do some other duty or not, we tell them nothing in the world is more important than you spending time with that person when they're calling up, because we only have one chance to do what? Make a first impression. Mm-hmm. And if you or your staff doesn't make a first impression, they're gone.
Yeah.
They may nicely bow out. They may not just call you back and whatnot. They'd have to be super desperate, and you'd have to be the only attorney in town for them to follow up with you. So a long time ago, we realized that as I grew, I have specific people do nothing but do those first calls in terms of taking those calls. I keep my receptionists and everybody else away, because a receptionist that's got duties she's got to get through and deadlines and whatnot is going to look at that spending time on that first time call as sort of a waste of her time, because it's getting her behind. Yeah. So if you're going to have a person like that that's doing some duties where they also taking the first time call, you let them know nothing else matters. No deadline, no ethic, and preferably they aren't on under any deadline of the next hour or today, or that's the wrong person on the phone. And everybody on this call knows that from experience. But what they probably don't know is how many clients you've lost because they weren't handled properly in that first call. Yeah. And you'll never know because your staff's not going to tell you.
And on top of all that, you need a staff member who wants to, instinctively wants to talk to someone more than paperwork. If you have a staff member,
as possible, throughout your case, you want to, if people that your staff that's going to have a lot of interaction with people ought to be people.
Yeah.
And we know what I mean by that. There's bookworms at one end, people in the other. Generally speaking, lawyers are bookworms, right?
Yeah.
I'm halfway in between. Back when I used to do interviews, I'd do 2 interviews, and that was all the people I could handle for one day. I'd pray to God the third one didn't show up.
Yeah.
And I'm always pushing for everybody to get as many interviews in as stuff. So at one point, I got my lawyers off of the interviews, and we started hiring paralegals. They're just people. They became paralegals, but I didn't hire anybody that wasn't a people person.
Yeah,
the kind of person that would do 6 interviews in a day and go like, "I had a great day," and I just start shivering at the thought.
Right. Yeah.
So you're absolutely correct. The person that answers your phone ought to be a total people person, or they shouldn't be answering the phone. It doesn't mean you can't have them duties, calling a client to get information, processing stuff and whatnot, but that's so critically important. I can't even tell you.
Well, one of the things you taught us, this was early this year, you were like, Phil, you need to create a program that handles this for the attorneys, right? And I hired someone, all he wants to do, like all day long, is call people. Like that's what he gets excited about, right? He doesn't want to do paperwork. And all he does, get him on the phone, qualify him in a very short, 10-minute call, and then does a live transfer. And because he's so excited about it, we've tracked over 2,800 appointments. His show-up rate's over 60%, right? Which is high when it comes to...
And people may think that's a low show rate, but nobody that's a seasoned lawyer is going to think that's a very high, as I always, we're going to get into ripening, but I'll talk more about it then. But I just want to say this, if you are signing up to file 100% of the leads that call you up, then you just can't, because not everybody you can help. But even if everybody was 100% ripe, okay,
it wouldn't be time.
If everybody was 100% ripe, you'd sign them all, but they're not.
Yeah.
In fact, the truth is that probably only 1 in 7 or 8 who really is calling up for the time is really, really ripe.
Yeah.
Okay. We probably ought to get into
John, before we go, we got to do that. But one quick thing, this whole first person thing, this first contact does not have to be staff. They don't have to be full time. You can find someone part time. You can find someone virtual. You can find someone devoted or partly devoted. The key thing, in-house or outsourced, the key thing is that they love their people. They love to talk. Okay, let's talk about ripeness, how this creates and folds right into bankruptcy practice.
Okay, long time
First
ago.
of all, explain the ripeness, the apple ripeness, so we can get a visual.
Ripeness is a term I take off of when I was brought up. We had a lot of apple tree orchards around, so I saw a lot of apples when it was in the flowering thing, and a little green apple, and it got to be a bigger apple, and it fell off the tree, and it rotted. Okay. And we can analogize that. We can use that to talk about bankruptcy practice. When the apple isn't formed yet and there's just a flower on the tree, that's the people that aren't our clients. That's people that are paying all their bills. They're doing fine. They don't need us. Where they start to need us is the little green apples that start to grow, but they're not ready to eat yet, or not ready to file, but eat, in terms of apples. So a lot of those people are going to call you. In fact, they're going to call you in every stage from, I don't want to file bankruptcy and I'm not interested and I was only shamed into calling your office, up to, I need to file yesterday. How soon can you get it done? And everybody else is in between, but all of them are calling us. And if you're doing ads saying too many bills to pay, you're hitting all of the green apples as well as the red ones, because the minute they realize they have more bills than they pay, they know they have a problem. They just don't know what to do about it.
Yeah.
So our advertising is meant to attract them, but a lot of the ones we attract are in that early stage of ripeness. They're still little green apples, maybe a little bit bigger green apples. Some of them come in are fully red, fully mature, and ready to file. Some that come in, and this, because we're a financial rescue boat in a sense, there are a lot of people that come to us that are basically financially dead on arrival. In the apple analogy, those are the ones that have not only fallen off the tree, but they've started to rot. And those are the ones we just can't help. But they're still going to call you too. All right. So you do the consult, whether it's a short consult, a long consult, whatever. And the consult itself, maybe somebody is almost fully red, all right, and ripe. You can bring them along a little farther. You can help to ripen them. Mostly the world's going to ripen them. And ones who are fully ripe, right, but aren't willing to do anything, you just keep in touch with them with follow-up emails and stuff, because the world will ripen them. Right. The world will force them to be picked, in a sense. Okay.
As you said, debts don't just go away on their own, and if they can't afford to pay their bills, they will ripen over time, right?
And because one thing we know for sure, debt problems don't just go away on their own.
Yeah.
I mean, there's very few people that, like, debt comes in and pays off all the bills.
Yeah.
All right. And debt problems that don't go away will cause them stress. It'll cause internal stress because they're used to paying their bills. It'll cause them stress from spouses who are annoyed with them. It'll cause them stress with kids who are complaining because you can't buy anything, can't go on a vacation, can't have the extra little things. And then the stress of all the creditors. All that stress will keep mounting and mounting until they're really ready to do something. And that's where they really need us. So the ones that are ripe, we handle. The rest of them, we need to keep in touch with.
We'll talk about that, let's talk about it now. The ripening process, the easiest way to ripen people is through email marketing, hands down. Now, you can call.
So historically, Phil, the interviewers that I would say to them, please follow up. We've got follow-up programs and stuff. And some would do it and some wouldn't.
Yeah.
Because they don't like it. Yeah. Right. Even people, they feel like they're bothering people. They don't like to, get shut down when they call on the phone, so on and so forth. They write them and stuff. we did it for years.
Mhm.
But I finally realized I needed to put something in place that would happen automatically. And so I put in email follow-up campaigns
Yeah.
to ripen people at different stages. Even a person who retains you may not be right.
Right.
And the proof is, does everybody retain you? File. And the answer is no. Some can't do it because they can't come up with the money.
Yeah.
Some do it because they changed their mind, or somebody talked to them, or a minister told me not to,
Mhm.
that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So what I do, and I started it 3.5 years ago, I started writing email campaigns, and the people on this thing are going to love this if they follow up and use this, because this will make you successful getting the leads in the door. This is the part about keeping them in the door and not losing them out the door. And so you want to keep in touch with them at all the way along until they're completely ripe, whether it's because of the things you say or because of the world is smashing them.
Right.
Okay. And so I did up these email campaigns. So, like, let's say we interview somebody and they look like they are now or could be a good candidate for bankruptcy. We immediately start a campaign of emails out to them, because I know a number of things. We could not have answered all their questions in the time we had. We couldn't have even thought about all the questions or concerns they might have had. I want to provide them valuable information to encourage them along the way, and kind of keep saying to them, because I know the world is going to beat them up. I know those debts aren't just going to go away. And if I can keep in touch with them, chances are they're going to come back to me. And hopefully they'll appreciate the fact that who doesn't like to be kept in communication?
Absolutely. So a couple of things on that, John. Let me just jump in here. First of all, don't make the mistake of, when you write your emails, of having everything be very short, because I've heard it 100 times from, probably more than that, from previous attorneys. Oh, people don't like to read. Let me tell you, not everybody that is not true for everybody. You need to write emails with varying lengths, because some people want a lot of information, and feed them the information. For the people who are going to want to skim, let's skim it. What we've found after sending millions and millions, 10, 15 million emails to bankruptcy debtors, leads, not clients, leads that have not been written yet. The thing that works the best, we have this whole thing in our emails that we follow up, and we say how to rebuild your life after bankruptcy, not rebuild your credit after bankruptcy. It's not talking about chapter 7 to 13. It's how to rebuild your life after bankruptcy. And I think it's just a little bit of like, wonder what that's like. They're not committing to bankruptcy. They're just, I'm sort of curious on what that looks like. And then we've used real life people, just like your debtors, who are looking straight in the camera and talking about how they paid off their home and got a car. I mean, that is the best of the best. It's pure gold to get people ripened. Because the truth of the matter is, when they understand that bankruptcy is not a ball and chain for 10 years, you can have a 720 credit score in 12 to 24 months. You can buy a car or buy a home in 2 years. They hear it from real people. All of a sudden, the ripening process works, and it's exciting for them. And we're doing a service to the public.
And part of the ripening process is to project a better future for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Not only tell like, I can get rid of your debts. It's just getting rid of your debts. It's what it means for your future. I can get your life back. On my website, there's all kinds of turns of phrases and stuff that you'll find if you search it out. What you'll also find is I cataloged onto my website every one of my email campaigns and every one of the emails I send out. Let's just take a second here and just go through some of the areas of follow-up, because most of this follow-up is about either ripening them more or keeping them ripe as they go through the process. Now, I use you, Phil, as you know, you do some Facebook advertising and then follow up there. And I do some other Facebook advertising and stuff ourselves. But in terms of where somebody's made contact with us, we send out we send out follow-up email campaigns, drip campaigns to people. Leads, like for instance, if somebody is a lead but hasn't made an appointment, we'll send them something. If they have made an appointment, we'll send them an email confirmation and a couple of SMS messages. If they don't show for the appointment, I'll start sending out a bunch of emails. And interesting to your point before, the email I send out, which people can see on my website, all this stuff, everybody write this down, billsbills.com.
Billsbills.com. In the chat, Deanna, let's put that in the chat.
Okay. And when you come to my website, do a search. Just do the search on the words email campaigns. And I think you'll all get very excited, as I spent 3.5 years writing this stuff, and it shouldn't just be used by me.
Yeah.
Now, Phil does a fair amount of that stuff too. We overlap in some of the things that we do. But if somebody makes an appointment, doesn't show, or cancels, we have an email campaign. If they do show and they seem like a good a good candidate, but they don't retain, they have a separate set of emails. Each stage along the way has got different messages that fit the particular stage. That's critically important. If we have people that retain, I can send them a set of emails to encourage them along to make sure they follow up and get their filing. I say things like, we're almost there. Don't give up now. You've made a really important decision. That homework assignment it's a one and done thing. Just get it done. All kinds of things like that. You guys will all see that. Now, then there's ones that retain, but file without closing. They get a whole nother set of things where I'm following up with them, trying to give them lots of other ways to look at things with the idea of, come on, is it time to get back in here and take up where we left off? Mm-hmm. We send out a couple of things to a client who has filed, like we send out a letter, congratulations and stuff, keep track of this, so on and so forth. That's all in there too. We send out stuff before the 341 meeting. Every client gets a email which explains the whole the 341 process, and then a couple of follow-up. We have a better show rate at the 341s because of it. People come in. I give them a lot of explanation in the email, so they come in a lot more prepared. And then we do one thing which I do through you, Phil, where we have a 13 case that gets confirmed. Then you send out stuff offering the 720 credit score rebuilding thing, which, by the way, if any of you don't know about that, it is a great, great program.
Yeah.
For the person that's really wants an easy way in small, bite-sized lessons on how to rebuild their credit. And lastly, and also, if I have a 13 case, and many of them get dismissed, we all know that, and for all kinds of reasons. They can't afford it, whatever, okay? They lost a job. That doesn't mean they aren't good candidates again for filing. I have a whole series of emails that's on my website that go out to people that are dismissed, talking about them getting back in, what might have happened. You can read it all for yourself. And lastly, we send out a series of emails over a period of 540 days after they get their discharge. It provides them all kinds of valuable information on how to reestablish credit, enjoy what they've accomplished, encouraging them to start really enjoying life and whatnot, tips on how to rebuild their credit. And I do all that, one, because I don't want it to be like I do their bankruptcy and I'm done and they never hear from me again, because now I know they've got a big problem. Now they got to figure out how to rebuild their world after I get rid of the debt. But ultimately, those that going out for the discharge, I'm hoping that if I stay front of mind with them, they'll send me personal referrals. And they do.
They do.
As far as I know, I'm probably the only attorney that actually follows up with anybody afterwards.
Yeah. I got three things on this point. First of all, regarding this litany of your follow-up that you do, which is extraordinary. Some people on the car are like, oh my gosh, I can't imagine the programming aspect of that. And like, what software am I going to use? All that stuff. Talk to us. This is what we do, right? I mean, our basic lead follow-up and texting campaign, we can follow up with all your leads and texting for $200 a month. Okay, this is not a lot. And then we can add on all these different aspects and program it for it to be done automatically. It connects to Practice Panther or Clio or whatever you want, where when you put something in, it takes them out of one email, deploys another one. So anyways, I just want to point out.
It's very similar to what I do. I use Time Matters, which is a sort of a legacy program. I wish I could transition away from it. I can't. And what I do is that I had a programmer that does all the email stuff. That's what his program does. It's called App Toto, right? And what he did is he dug in underneath my program, and he keys in on like 13 or 14 specific fields that when we fill out a field, then it automatically starts one of these things. So all my stuff is set up automatic, and that can all be done for all of you through Philip. It's going to be a fair amount of work for him, but it isn't like any of you got to come up with the messages. They're all written if you like them. So what happens is, let me give you just an example. In my Time Matters program, if you fill in that the person's retained, it starts the one that about like you retained but not yet filed. If the date for closed out is filled in, it starts another one. If the date for dismissal is filled out, it does another one. It does. If the date for discharge is filled out.
When you say starts another one, it takes them out of one sequence and puts them in another one. They're not getting multiple emails. What's happening? The messaging is changing because they're changing. They're ripening is changing, right? So thank you for that, John.
Every one of the message campaigns, it deals with different issues depending upon the stage of the client in the life cycle and coming through our firm.
Right. Love it. And I just want to repeat, I mean, that's a key epiphany that frankly, I didn't think about until we were prepping for this call. When you said, just because they retained you doesn't mean that they're ripe. I mean, think about this. Think about how many clients you have that have retained you, but stop paying. And I have people that take their clients out of our email drip sequence because, they retained us. No. Like, get this done. Get them finished, right? I mean, just because they retain you, it does not mean that they are ripe enough to move forward. And then the other thing I want to point out.
I don't want anybody on the call to think this is a difficult thing. First off, if you like the emails that I've provided, you don't have to write anything. I put all the ideas in there for you based on 40 years of experience in what clients want to hear at what stages of the case. You can add other ones. You can change it to whatever you want, but you're not starting from scratch. You saved 3.5 years of work that I did for you. Then it's just a question of through Phil or through somebody else. If you don't want to do it, if you want to do it yourself, you have those and you can pull them off of my website and use them to help you have a better, longer, more rewarding relationship with your clients with less complaints and stuff. People are less likely to complain if you're keeping in touch with them with valuable information. Absolutely. Once again,
provide value, the rest will come. I want to talk about bonding via email because I hear often in the marketplace, email's dead. Email doesn't work. It's all texting. And it's not true. It's absolutely not true. Do you need texting? Absolutely, right? And it's to supplement the in-between so people can get it on your phone, respond. We have a team in the Philippines doing nothing but replying to text messages all day long to our clients. But the emails, they create a system. So today we got an email from one of our clients. I looked at the portal and the subject line was 1 year later. And the guy replied and said, I'm ready. And at the very bottom of every one of our emails is a number, right? And the number, no one really knows what that means, but we know it. It's how many days they are in the sequence. It was 372. And we're just dripping along. We're not taking staff time. We're not doing anything. And finally, he's like, I'm ready. And the built-in credibility of that is done.
He's saying, I'm right.
I'm right. We don't have to figure it out.
Pick me.
Yeah. So good. Okay, so John, we have 8 minutes left, and there were two other things. I want to make sure we have some time for the question that were submitted. And if you have a question,
Right.
you can either raise your hand or submit in the chat. But I want to point out two things. We put in the email that we're going to talk about attorney fees, and we're going to have to do another time for this. But this was specifically, you said to me one day, you said the time I spent getting my Chapter 13 base fees raised was the best hourly ever spent in my career, to the equivalent of over $100,000 an hour.
Exactly. Even if you spend 50 hours working on getting your fees raised, that fee you get raised, you get it on every case the rest of your career.
Right.
And so I think it's actually a low number to consider that I only earned $100,000 an hour. In the long run, it's that increased fee not only makes you have better money to be able to handle the cases and do them more properly, but it's a gift that goes on giving.
So we're going to have another session on that. I know you did this with one of your bankruptcy tigers. Specifically, you gave them all this material. Let's unpack that at a later date on this. And the other thing is discharging student
and
loans.
Just so they know, I have a whole bunch of materials and presentation, which we worked up back in 2015, that I can provide people in terms of how to approach your judges. You need to get certain things from your trustees. Judges all think that whatever they've approved, you're collecting. Yeah. We all know that ain't true.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of arguments. I've written them all out in the white paper that I provided to the judges. I can make that available to anybody and everybody. All they got to do is email me, tell me you want it, and I can provide it.
And we can do a whole webinar on it to get to more people.
Absolutely.
So that's the first thing. And by the way, if you have any ideas on webinars you'd like on this, on the other topics, submit it to the chat or reply to any email. The other thing we're not have time for, but we can talk about, especially with your partner, Ed Bolt, who's been substantially in this development, discharging student loans. On November 17, 2022, the DOJ changed their guidance. I have some attorneys that are collecting, I have multiple attorneys collecting over 100 payments a month, getting paid for potential discharges. And we can talk about that, and we can have Ed on the call, right, John?
Right. And there's two ways to handle that. You can do it in the middle of like a Chapter 13 case. It has to be done during a pending case. Mm-hmm. Or the other idea, and I'm going to talk to my partner, Ed, who he's the one that worked out everything with the Department of Education, is wait till the case is done, get their case done, put them on a payment plan to pay you, then go back in, and if your jurisdiction will allow it, reopen the case so that you can finish out the student loan discharge. I frankly think the second of those is easier. It's less complicated for your staff and everything to deal with, but I haven't talked it over with my partner yet.
Well, and also just a little experience I have. So we've had our paralegals ask people about the student loans and actually go through the Stretto software, filling them out. 85% of the people that we put through the software have gotten 3 green boxes, which according to Stretto means there's a 96% chance that those loans will get discharged in bankruptcy. And of the ones that have gone through, 90% of them haven't filed bankruptcy. So it's a really unique opportunity where you get, more fees with similar lead costs. Okay, John, go ahead. What were you going to say? You going to say anything on that?
Well, I was just going to simply say this. We use the fact that they're student loans to help retain clients, even if we're not looking at getting rid of them or haven't looked at that. And you do it because everybody now is going to start having them pound them for the student loans. The first payment, I think, was due October 1st for all the federal stuff. When somebody comes in, they may be coming in now because the student loans have put them over the top and not being able to pay their bills.
Yeah.
And one of the best closes is, let me get rid of all this stuff. If I get rid of all the rest of this debt, then you can afford your student loans.
Yeah.
So we help them by getting rid of debt to afford to pay their student loans.
Right. And if they have a limited ability to pay and a limited future ability to pay and have done good faith, maybe they can get everything wiped away. Right.
Right. Yep.
Okay, John, couple questions. Chris asked, how do I get started with a solo practice with the smallest starting marketing budget possible? Say $255 a month, no previous clients, no list to reach out to. What would you say to Chris, John?
Okay, the way I started my practice before I did bankruptcy, but I started it, was I put ads in the Penny Saver or Ad Saver or those little envelopes that come around to every household that have a bunch of coupons and stuff in it. Okay. Now I started it by doing wills. That's where I started the practice in North Carolina after I came out of New York State. I think that's a great place to do. You can focus it on neighborhoods or zip codes or things like that. Just find those money mailers. I think they're called different things at different places. That's probably what I would do if I had a really limited budget to do anything, and then gradually grow into some of the other stuff.
So that's in today, right now, you do the Penny Saver or whatever, right?
No, I don't do them.
No, but would you if you had limited budget?
If I was starting over, absolutely.
So Chris, let me tell you how
and it could be you getting people in for wills. It work good. You can have a little coupon, $100 off, whatever. Right. Okay. But people look through those things. Yeah. And especially probably people that are in debt. And especially if you can find out the higher filing areas in demographics. In other words, maybe you can ask the clerk of court or something. We do up heat maps and stuff through an organization and where we can find out the highest filing areas per capita and stuff like that. You don't want to send the mailers out with your thing in it to a rich neighborhood. You want to send it out to your blue collar neighborhoods, not your dead poor neighborhoods, kind of the blue collar neighborhoods, the ones that have got kids to raise, which is our best demographic. 35 to 65 years old is our best demographic. Of that, the ones that two parents or a single mom raising children, they're the ones that are feeling the heat the most.
And someone just asked, where do you get those demographics? Do you remember the software that compiles it? Or
it wasn't software. I got them. I'm affiliated with another guy, and he was able to pull them off of Pacer.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
So
you get a download from Pacer and then a heat map.
I don't know if he's available to do that. I don't know, and I don't know if you can go out on Pacer. I don't know the answer to that because it was easy for me through this guy.
As a matter of fact, Invoigo does offer that through a heat map, Invoigo.com. If you could put that in the chat, D, that'd be great. Invoigo, make sure the spelling's off. But they do offer a heat map. But
if you're going to spend money on advertising, you want as much as you can focus it on the areas, because people live in different areas based on what they can afford. You want to be in those neighborhoods where there's the highest per capita of bankruptcy filings. That just makes sense.
Couple other things. Luke Homen just brought up Thumbtack. Thumbtack's a great option. Not a lot of leads, but very inexpensive. Craigslist is something you can do to get very, very inexpensive. And also, Chris, lastly, Facebook marketing. Facebook marketing, you can generate a lead somewhere between $30 and $40 with the name, email, cell. Then we drip on them. Right? The problem with a $250 budget, it's tight. It's because the machine needs to learn. Over time, Facebook learns based on what we're doing. And so 250 is sort of tight, even 500 is tight. But it's a cheap way that pays dividends.
You can handle some of those kind of budgets, can't you, Phil?
Well, 250 is tight just because it doesn't produce the same results, right? But anyways, Chris, we can talk later.
Okay,
Let me go to the next question. Next question. John from San Diego. Basically, he must have watched our previous video in part 1 talking about the short-term and long-term long consultation. And they basically, I'm going to summarize 2 paragraphs. Should the short form be completed during the initial call and then another call for the long consult? Or should we do the long consult first? He felt like he was wasting a lot of time, his staff's time. What did he do from that perspective?
Okay. It depends on how you're set as far as staff, right? The short, what we call shorty, we do a couple of hundred of them a week. It's a short consult, and I actually do it this way, okay, which may not be available to you all. On that first time call, my call center, I've got a whole Google sheet, and on it is listed whichever of my fully trained interviewers is available, and some of them are assigned to taking these short phone consults, and it's not meant as a replacement for the full one. It's meant as like I want to give that caller the most information, the most valuable information. I want to build a rapport with them as quickly as possible, because if I build a rapport and get enough facts, not much, to indicate whether I can really help them or not, they're more likely that when I then set a big phone consult, that they're going to show up and fill out my paperwork because they see a little bit more light at the end of the tunnel. All right. Mm-hmm. When we first started him, some of my interviewers were saying, well, can I just continue on from the short one to the long one? And I said, sure. But we've gradually gotten away from that, especially as we've gotten busy. It depends on how busy you are. It depends on who you have to take that call. But better you have somebody on the phone for 5 minutes with that person who is juicing them up in terms of what you may be able to do for them. Also, it helps to screen them a little. If they call and say, I got $1,000 in debt, and that's it, you can eliminate them and not take up a time slot on your calendar where you're going to waste an hour that could be given to somebody else. Again, I have a whole white paper on what short phone consult that I've given to my staff, and it's just all meant
you gave it to us
and to get some information so that they're more likely to show up when we need more information.
This is the key component of what John mentioned earlier about having that person, that people person, talk to the person first, right? And then if you have time, do more of the consult to figure out how ripe they are on that, John.
And it depends who in your firm wants to do that. Now, if you're getting a fair amount of calls for first times, you got to be careful, because if you're spending 15 minutes on the phone with somebody to really warm them up, tune them up so they're more likely to go ahead, and you got another call come in and there's nobody to handle it, you can lose that one or screw this one up.
Right.
So you got to have a backup plan.
Yeah.
Right. And it may be you talk to the other for a second and say, look, I can't talk to you right now, but I want to talk to you. Can I call you in a half an hour?
Well, and John,
we kind of do through a Google sheet.
And John from San Diego, one option would be is until you're at the point where you have a full-time staff person focused on that, we can bridge the gap. Like we can handle short form, pass them over to you.
Well, that's one of the programs that Philip, you set up because you talked to me. You knew I was doing this stuff, and where nobody was doing it in these firms, they didn't have the capacity. Where you're actually taking that call, doing that rapport building thing, providing the attorney with a little bit of information, and then you can either hot transfer it across to somebody if they can for sure have somebody available, or you can set the appointment for them. But at least that person's getting more love than they would get talking to a receptionist that's got a bunch of other stuff, and where the caller's call is really sort of, she hates to admit it, but it's kind of a bother to her because it interrupts her flow.
Absolutely. John, I want to go through other questions. Jeff asked, have you ever done any Yelp marketing? Yelp, Y-E-L-P.
Yelp is not big in North Carolina. It's okay for restaurants. In some areas, I understand it's much bigger, but we've never, we tried a couple times, didn't get anywhere. It just paled in comparison to Google.
Okay. Next question, Joel. I have reviews, but I find that many clients don't want to write a review for whatever reason, but will send me a nice note instead. I ask for reviews at the end of every case. What would you say to that, John?
Okay. The way we handle it is right at the moment when they're most thrilled, maybe at the end of a very successful initial interview or in the moment of signing, one of my staff will say to them, look, like there's a law of reciprocity. We've done something for them. We gave them an initial interview and a bunch of stuff that's going to save their life in the initial interview. Thrilled. We've gotten their case ready to file and we're going to take the pressure off. Thrilled. Okay. That at that point there, have your staff ask them, and it's all in my white paper. Okay. Say to them, look, could you do me a favor? A favor, right? You've just done them a big, huge thing. You ask them for a favor, they're going to feel a need to say yes. Like I say, could you just do this? Could you just get on and give me a Google review? And when you do it, could you please mention my name specifically to the person that's just done all this work for them? Because it could really make a difference when it comes to my end of month evaluation. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
That works beautifully. You don't want to only make sure you got the client that's thrilled. Right. My white paper talks about it. Now, what we did is we put a link on our website that the processor sends them, like the processor is going to about to file their case. So in the first paragraph, I'm giving them their case number and an email. They have the link, and the link is in our website, and it takes them right to the place which you can find and put the link on your website where you want them to give the review. Make it as easy as possible. You ask them for a favor. It's going to help this person in their end of month evaluation.
Love it.
You're giving them an easy link to get it. And prior to COVID, I was paying my staff $50 a piece if they could get a Google review. Do you know what that did for my staff? That made my staff a whole lot better. Partly because I was paying them to be nice, and partly because once, what you'll find, the best thing off of Google reviews that mention specific staff is it builds the staff's ego. Or if you like tell somebody, like I fill in the room and I tell everybody, this is the greatest guy in the world. What's he going to be, an asshole now?
Yeah.
So you have to, a good review that mentions a staff member puts them in a position where now they have to live up to it. It's fantastic.
But Joel, I would add a couple things to that. One, I find attorneys, when they ask for reviews, when they're asking for themselves, not a big firm like John's, but when they're asking for themselves, they sort of like brush over it because they don't want to like be too pushy. It's for me, et cetera, et cetera. That's why it's so easy that when the way we do it, you just give something of value first. So what happens is, I told you how we did it with the last client. We're generating.
And by the way, Phil, I love the way you do it.
Yeah, cool. Well, I mean,
and you have the proof, and I think it's less stress on the staff and everything. And you're only sending it out to clients that have already got a discharge. Yeah. So they're fairly happy.
Well, and after that first, here's 720 credit score for free. Would you give us a review, free? Then they say yes to it. Then we ask for a review. Then we put them on a monthly drip on how to use your bankruptcy as a springboard to success. At the very top, it says, feel free to forward this email to friends or family members that are in debt.
Right.
Click here to give a review. And we know people are forwarding emails because we use call rel tracking and that number is being used. So my point is, Joel, there's, sometimes it's hard to ask for reviews. I mean, I yourself. So that's just one thing. I'm going to keep going on down this. Kathleen, John Orcutt's email, and my email is at the very top of the chat. Mark Lee had a great idea, actually. He wants to, like, how great would it be if we looked at some websites and Google ads and commented on it? We'll talk about that at a future event or a future webinar. Marty, yes, you have permission to use information on your website. Is that right, Joel? John? People can use the information on your website.
Use whatever, change it a little.
Yeah. Change it a little, but yeah, change it a little.
Use my website as a resource.
There you go.
Okay. There's a ton of stuff on there. It's hundreds of pages long. This is not some little bitty website. I've been writing that thing for 30 years.
Nothing more to say there.
Like, there's just one page. Like, you go to the 200 topics page on my website, which is right at the top, and there's a million really neat things there. And one of them is something like, 60, 59, ways to have a bigger, better life or something like that. Every one of the topics is great because the stuff I used over the years where I always came up with more stuff than I could use. You'll find lots of stuff you love. You'll find it inspires you. You'll be able to beef up your websites with stuff that's more exciting than the boring stuff we put on there.
Absolutely. Okay, Robert, we have clients currently right now doing student loan discharges based on the new guidance in 7s and 13s. It's not just 7s. Susan, we will get the information regarding the Chapter 13 attorney fees. We'll do that for you. Thanks for chatting. Let me see what else. Jenny, Jenny responds, I'm slammed, but I want more business. I'm concerned about expanding too quickly. I had 13 people in the 2008-2015 crash. Any tips, John? No one better to ask. Good question, Jenny.
Yes, you have to be careful. You can only grow. If you had all the money in the world, if you were a billionaire, you can still only grow your practice just so fast because you can only build it as fast as you can hire, train, and keep competent staff. And that just takes a period of time. The most valuable thing I have, I can't give any of you, and that's the longevity of my fantastic staff. You have to build that over a period of time. It takes a while. What I tell people in my Bankruptcy Tigers thing, for somebody who's really ambitious and has got a businessman inside them, I said, what took me 30 years to do, I can get you there in 10, but it's still going to be 10.
Yeah.
And excellent. We were up to averaging 230, 240 filings a month. And we're on our way back there now.
John, you're a gift to the industry. It's great to learn from someone like you, and you have such an open heart. I can talk. I mean, you're a great mentor to me and many people on this call, countless many that you'll never meet. So I appreciate.
I want everybody to be successful. I want the public is going to need us, and it's more and more. I mean, the doors are going to get blown off, to the degree that we can help the people that come in, and hopefully they get in soon enough that we can still help them, that they didn't wait so long that not even filing bankruptcy can help. So, most of you are not competition with me. Mm-hmm. And even if you're in my state, you're probably not really a competition with me. Okay. We've done a lot of things. We've figured it out. We've broken the code on a lot of stuff. There's nothing sacrosanct about how we do it, but we've got everything done like A to Z because it was the only way I could stay organized and have 80 people working for me.
We just got a chat. John Orcutt is a national treasure. John, thank you.
Oh, there you go. And my wife doesn't think so.
Okay. Hey, for those of you who are first call, just so you know, next month we're doing a strategy call on automation. Luke Homen from Oklahoma. We deal with a lot of attorneys nationwide, hundreds, and this guy has automation down in a way that I've never seen before. Everything fires in a very unique way.
Luke is very talented
young man, and he is going to be one of the pillars in the industry. So it's going to be next week. Watch for the emails. And for those of you who want to reach out to John, his email is at the very top. Those who want to reach out to me, my email is at the very top, or reply to any email. And if you'd like a free marketing call, we would be honored to give that to you. John, thanks for your time. And we'll talk to you soon.
Enjoyed it.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye, everybody.